This morning, the most famous salon owner in the country. If Shelley Luther doesn't have to follow the governor's orders, why should anyone? That is a question we have for Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Democrats say that Paxton and Governor Abbott selectively chose her case while ignoring similar ones. We'll ask State Rep Chris Turner how Democrats might use this in November. Another poll predicts Texas to be a battleground. Joe Biden now tied with Donald Trump here. Why the president is losing independent voters in our state. And astonishing numbers out of Austin. Texas now closing in on 2 million unemployment claims since March.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good morning and happy Mother's Day to the moms joining us this morning. Who would have thought a Texas salon could create such a political flashpoint? That's where we begin, but first let's get you caught up on some political headlines we are also watching. A poll shows this state could be a presidential battleground. Donald Trump and Joe Biden are tied in Texas, both at 43%. Biden winning more independents. Dallas Morning News and UT Tyler conducted this survey with 1,100 Texans. These numbers mean both campaigns could spend heavily here later this year. Days before hair salons and barbershops reopened, 2 state representatives defied the governor's ban and went to get a haircut. Republicans Briscoe Cain from Baytown and Steve Toth from Conroe made their illegal haircuts public on Twitter. Cain on the right, Toth on the left, both saying small business owners needed to reopen. And Sid Miller said something last week that caught our attention. The Texas Agriculture Secretary told at 60 Minutes that more than a third of rural hospitals in Texas are in financial trouble. There are 163 rural hospitals in the state, Miller said, and 60 of them have less than 30 days of cash on hand. One in Alpine, he said, has already filed bankruptcy. Now to the salon owner that has become the latest flashpoint in how and when we reopen our state. A Dallas judge held her in contempt of court last week for refusing to close her business and sent her to jail for 7 days. The Texas Supreme Court released her, and Governor Abbott now says no one should face fines or jail time for violating his orders. So what are they worth? Our first guest this morning, whose job it is to defend the state, is Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. General Paxton, thanks for being with us. Good to see you as always.
Jason, thanks for having me on. It's great to be with you.
You are in your office this morning down in Austin. Let me ask you this first question. If a Texan cannot be fined or jailed for violating the governor's orders, what good are they?
Well, first of all, I don't think the governor eliminated fines. What he eliminated was going to jail for working. So I never complained when this started. I never complained about her getting a fine. It just seemed a little odd and overreaching for somebody that is doing something that is normally lawful, cutting hair, in a county that is releasing prisoners from jails. The story I heard was that almost 1,000 were released, and we're fighting them now and further releases of some very bad people, that they would put her in jail for doing something that normally is a lawful activity.
I believe the fines were from Houston when the governor was telling the county judge there that they couldn't fine people for not wearing masks. Judge Lena Hidalgo wanted that. So it's a separate case, but I think just kind of encompassing. Let me ask you, what kind of precedent, General Paxton, do you think that this might set for future orders if there's another pandemic or an emergency that the governor has to issue on?
Well, I think it's a good precedent. First of all, I don't think in American history we've put anybody in jail for cutting hair in a voluntary basis. So the precedent here was unusual, since I don't think you can find another case of somebody going to jail for doing this. So I think it's a good precedent, and I think what she did by taking this challenge on is she basically created a lot of transparency, a lot of light on an issue that needed to be addressed in a better way. And look, I almost don't fault anybody for this. This is we don't have a roadmap for this, and there's a lot of challenges and new issues. I think the judge took it a little too personally when she didn't apologize, and should have based this decision more on what she had done by not complying with the order, rather than how she was not apologizing the right way in court.
General Paxton, I know you've probably heard this next story. In mid-April, Laredo police set up a sting and busted 2 women down there for trying to perform beauty and cosmetic services from their home. Both of those women were charged with Class B misdemeanors. Should those charges be dropped?
I would. I think, again, I'm glad they didn't have to serve. I think they were in jail for a couple hours. I'm glad they didn't have to serve time. But even 2 hours to me was extreme. Again, I don't have a problem with fines for violating these orders, but I do think that any type of criminal prosecution is too much. And my understanding is that the DA is not going to criminally prosecute them for those misdemeanors. So I'm pleased to hear that.
That's down in Laredo. Gyms are not allowed to reopen until May 18th, a week from tomorrow. Would the owner of a gym, do you think, be charged by a local entity before then if they decided to reopen, let's say May 15th or something like that?
It's possible. I don't know. I haven't heard of a gym that is potentially violating that order. At least there haven't been any that I know of so far. So I expect these gyms to comply. If they don't, they may suffer similar consequences, but hopefully not jail time.
General Paxton, you've really helped the governor explain his orders, but we noticed your longtime campaign manager and the campaign manager for your wife, she's the one we saw running the Open Texas protests. Just curious what side you fall on in all of this.
I have a different job than she does. She doesn't work for either one of us anymore. She's a great person, a multi-talented individual, and I'm sure she's doing great work. But my job is to represent the governor, the legislature, state agencies, and now under the Disaster Act, I have to represent county judges and mayors. So I don't get to do policy decisions. My job is to focus on representing my clients.
All right, and your client, obviously, the state of Texas, so we appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Have a great day.
Democrats, of course, have a different take on this. They are asking why Attorney General Ken Paxton and Governor Greg Abbott got involved in a local case. This one especially weeks after other Texas women had already been charged for similar crimes. So joining us right now is State Representative Chris Turner from Grand Prairie here in North Texas. He also chairs the House Democratic Caucus. Chris, it's good to see you again.
Jason, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me today.
Let me ask you the first question that I asked the Attorney General as well. If a Texan cannot be fined or jailed for violating the governor's orders, what good are they?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, none of us want to see people jailed or imprisoned unless it absolutely has to be done. And clearly, there needs to be a very high bar for jailing someone who's not a danger to others. But look, the facts of the matter is the governor issued executive orders. They have the force of law. In his executive orders, he clearly stated that jail time was a penalty for violating his executive orders. That's the first point. But the second point, equally important, is that in this case, Ms. Luther wasn't jailed because of violating the executive order. She was jailed because she was found to be in contempt of court when she repeatedly refused to comply with the executive order that a judge tried to make her comply with. So it's kind of a little twisted the way some Republican politicians have talked about this in the last few days.
Well, let me ask you about one element of it. You've said that General Paxton was inappropriate by getting involved in the Shelley Luther case in Dallas, but Paxton could not legally intervene. He just sent a letter in support of her. What's wrong with the letter in support?
Well, right. So my comment on that was simply highlighting the letter that 12 district judges in Dallas County sent to Attorney General Paxton in response to his letter, saying, in their view, it was inappropriate for him to have contacted the judge in the case, and that his intervention or his contact was unwelcome. And so I thought the fact that 12 district judges were writing the Attorney General saying essentially cease and desist with these kinds of communications was noteworthy. And I can't recall something like that happening before.
We saw you tangling with another state representative from across the aisle on Twitter. Is there something here, do you think, House Democrats might look at in the coming weeks?
Well, look, I think, it's no secret. I think myself and a lot of other Democrats are dismayed by the continued behavior of our Attorney General in this state, whether it's writing inappropriate letters to judges to weigh in on decisions they make from the bench, or the thing that I think I commented on the other night as well, where you have a district judge in Travis County who has issued an injunction saying that because of the pandemic, all Texans do qualify to vote by mail in the upcoming runoff election due to the fact that they could be at risk by catching COVID-19. And the Attorney General has taken the judge's ruling and basically instructed election officials around the state to disregard it. He doesn't have the authority to do that. He's entitled to his opinion. He's not entitled to his own facts. And so, I'm concerned about the actions of the Attorney General, and I think it is something the legislature needs to pay more attention to.
Do you see hearings or anything like that coming up?
Well, I don't know about that. There's no hearings right now happening in the House or the Senate because the Capitol is closed, so it'd be premature to speculate on that. But look, I think we've seen in the past when elected officials have gotten too far out on a limb, sometimes the legislature has come in and taken a look at those actions. I think that's certainly appropriate to do in the context of the events that I mentioned that have happened lately with the Attorney General. About
20 seconds left here. Give me a grade on the reopening of Texas so far, 1 to 10, 10 being the best. How's it going?
Well, I think it's an incomplete because I think we don't know yet. But I'm very troubled by the fact that the governor had a phase 1, and we're going to give it 2 weeks till May 18th to see if we could move to a phase 2. He got impatient, and it lasted all of 4 days before he moved to phase 2. So I'm very concerned about that accelerated timeline. All right. State Rep Chris Turner, good to see you again. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Jason.
Thanks a lot. Coming up, businesses are reopening as more and more Texans are diagnosed with the coronavirus. We'll talk to Ross Ramsey on the politics of reopening. And Dallas was one of the first and hardest hit cities now looking at budget cuts. Councilman Casey Thomas on what his constituents don't want to see go. You're watching Inside Texas Politics. When and how to reopen is the latest political flashpoint in the state. While both sides argue over it, businesses, they are already starting to plan for what the office looks like when you return. The cubicle could make a big comeback, stand-up meetings, and fewer conference rooms. The latest episode of our political podcast, Y'all-itics, focuses on what's happening behind the scenes right now. You can download Y'all-itics wherever you get your podcasts, or just pause this program, point your phone's camera at the code on your screen there, and it will take you directly to our latest episode. Texas businesses are opening as some of its largest cities are seeing the highest daily numbers of coronavirus cases yet. The governor admitted that confirmed cases will increase in a phone call with lawmakers the Texas Democrats leaked. But the governor said there is one metric he is specifically looking at, and that is the hospitalization rate. There are more cases reported, but the governor said fewer of them are actually ending up in the hospital. Ross Ramsey is the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. He is in Austin for us as always. Good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Jason. How are you?
Doing well. You know, if people are afraid to return, even if the state has reopened, which side wins this politically?
Well, you know, the politics are weird here. If you open the businesses, if you're the governor and you open businesses, then you're satisfying the folks who want to get the economy going again. But if you only open at 25%, a lot of businesses can't work at 25%. Somebody pointed out in our office that if you're in your favorite restaurant and 25% of the tables are all that's full, your favorite restaurant's in trouble.
That makes sense, and 25% of the staff is what is probably going to be required to work there. The Texas unemployment claims reached 1.8 million people over 7 weeks. That's how many filed this week. How might this affect the November election the longer this goes on?
You know, it could be a wallet election. It could be where people vote their purses and say, you know, look, I'm in bad shape. I'm not better off than I was before, and I'm going to vote that way. You know, if it becomes about economics, and the economics are bad, that's bad for incumbents.
A wallet election. Haven't heard that. Ross, thanks, man. Back to you in a moment. Cities are struggling with two problems right now: how to safely reopen businesses and government, and considering what they have to cut because of all the lost sales tax revenue. It's happening in city halls all across our state, including Dallas, that was hit hard early on. And joining us right now is Dallas Councilman Casey Thomas. Councilman, good to see you this morning.
Hey, Jason. Good morning. How you doing?
Doing well. The city of Dallas rolled out 2 programs last week: rental assistance and a small business continuity fund. How many people might that help, and how long is the money going to last?
Well, Jason, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to tell about these 2 great programs. First, I want to thank our Mayor Johnson, who established 2 ad hoc committees, one to deal with social and human recovery, chaired by Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Adam Magoo, and then the Economic Recovery Ad Hoc Committee, and appointing me as chair of that committee. I'm really excited about this, Jason. We had great response to these programs. The first was a tenant and mortgage assistance program, where we allowed residents in the city of Dallas an opportunity to apply to receive up to $1,500 a month for 3 months. One of the conditions is they had to have lost their job or their hours cut significantly as a result of COVID-19. This particular program, once they apply and they receive approval for the funds go directly to the landlord or the mortgage company or the utility company. And the other program I'm extremely excited about was our Small Business Continuity Fund. That program is set up to provide grants and loans to small businesses in the city of Dallas, and we're able to set aside half of the grant money for businesses that are historically represented low-income communities, and that way we level the playing field.
Councilman, let me ask you this. How long might that money last? Is it going to go pretty fast?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the money for the tenant assistance program ran out in a couple of days. However, we would rather have had the money, had it available to provide some relief to many of our Dallas residents than not had it available at all.
And how much money are we talking about that you guys had set aside from the CARES Act to pay for this? How much money was it that ran out?
We put aside almost $14 million, Jason, specifically for the mortgage and rental assistance program, and we put $5 million into the Small Business Continuity Fund.
Wow.
These dollars from the CARES Act.
Well, you're hearing from a lot of your out-of-work constituents who say they want to shift and move from non-essential jobs to essential jobs. Is the city going to pay to retrain or help people get these essential jobs so they can continuously have a paycheck?
Well, you know, Jason, it's important to have partners. Fortunately, we have partners like Workforce Solutions of Greater Dallas and the Dallas Regional Chamber. Both immediately began to set up online portals for individuals who were in non-essential jobs to be able to apply and get hired through an online portal virtually to go right into these essential jobs. And it's thousands and thousands of essential jobs that are available right now.
Good deal. Councilman Casey Thomas, we appreciate it. Thanks for what you're doing down there at City Hall as well.
Hey, thank you, Jason. And we're going to keep working hard for the residents of the city of Dallas.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care. Another poll is out showing Joe Biden and Donald Trump tied in Texas. It is the third one to suggest that Texas might be a battleground. That's one of our topics next on the Roundtable.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross is back. Bud Kennedy from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram is here, and Bernadine Steptoe, the political producer at WFAA in Dallas, joins us each week. Ross, will start with you. And Governor Abbott seems to have really watered down his executive orders around COVID, saying no one can be fined or jailed for violating them. A lot of people are now asking, are these worth anything?
You know, it's weird to watch him put his foot down and then lift it right back up. He said, you know, these are the rules. You need to stick within these rules. They initially said, you know, these orders carry penalties of up to 180 days in jail and fines and all of that. He got presented with a political case and buckled very quickly.
He did buckle quickly, Bud. He put his foot down and he lifted it right back up. Did the Tea Party wing of the Republican Party, did they force him to do this?
Yeah, he just saw which way the wind was blowing. The Tea Party set this up. They've been looking for somebody for 2 months to challenge his orders. They wanted to get back at him. They wanted to undermine him. He didn't help them in the last session. They wanted to hurt him. But, you know, the only people who could make the Tea Party look good are these Dallas County Democrats. I mean, you don't go out and arrest people over haircuts. This is what happens. You make them famous. You know, there's an old saying in law enforcement, this juice wasn't worth the squeeze.
Bernadine, did you hear that? I don't know how to follow that up, but he's right.
That, but keep in mind, his problem didn't just start with the salon owner. You had two state representatives of his own party who was defying his order. So his whole entire executive order was in trouble. So he had to do something. He either had to revise it or carry on and let everybody just ignore it, because that's what's happened.
Well, Ross, let me ask you about that. Briscoe Cain and Steve Toth went to get haircuts down in the Houston area. Obviously, Governor Abbott is not on the ballot this fall, but is there any political damage to him about this?
You know, I think you hit it on the head. He's lucky he's not on the ballot in the fall. You know, his comportment during the pandemic is going to be, you know, his resume as he goes into the elections in 2022. Right now, this is more of a report card on Donald Trump, and you know the timing is everything, right?
Yeah, Bud. Let's.
But Jason, what else is happening is that there's a state Republican convention coming up, and a battle between the conservatives and the mainstream over a lot of power. The conservatives want to show they're in control.
Yeah, Bernadine, do you want to add briefly?
Yeah, because it clearly shows that he's fearful of the ultra-right, the Tea Party. That's who's ruling the party at this point. Keep in mind now, politics is always.
Yeah, and
it was Governor Abbott who got the haircut.
Good point. Ross, let me switch over. You guys have done polls before, too. We saw a poll last week from the Dallas Morning News and UT Tyler. It's the third poll showing what could be a very close race for Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This poll showed them tied in Texas. Is Texas really going to be a battleground as we push through COVID, as we get into the summer?
You know, I mean, these polls, I kind of trust the polls. You know, right now the president is about 50-50 on would you reelect him, would you vote for him again? Yeah. And, you know, within the range of Biden. Biden's numbers aren't great in Texas. Trump's aren't great in Texas. The number to watch, I think, is independent voters who seem to have large numbers of undecideds in the race at this point.
All right, guys, thanks so much. We'll have to leave it right there. We appreciate it. Bernadine, happy Mother's Day to you. And thank you for joining us as well, guys. Appreciate you watching Inside Texas Politics. We're back next Sunday with another episode. We'll see you then, and make sure you wish Mom happy Mother's Day.